Welcome to Music Matters 2020. We're broadcasting live today from Founders Park in historic Ocean Grove, New Jersey on the Jersey Shore. And welcome to our unique podcast where we explore the issues in music today as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues in the field. Today is a first. We're expanding our genre. We've been primarily classical music and opera, but today we're going into the rock and roll genre, which is very near and dear to my heart. Even though I make my living as a classical musician, I've always loved rock and roll, and I've always loved rock music and the excitement and the vitality. And today we have a luminary in the rock field. We have Mr. Paul Green, who was the founder of the School of Rock and is currently the director of and the founder of the Paul Green Rock Academy, which is doing incredible work. You saw their video to open up this show, playing the music of Frank Zappa, King Kong, and just incredible performers. And we're so delighted to have Paul with us today. Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's really great to be here. Talk to another fellow music lover and.
So tell me about you. I mean, I always say that music is music and good music is good music. And your journey is you have to be around the people who are better than you all the time. I tell my students it's like playing tennis. If you want to be a great tennis player, you have to play much better people than you so that you can rise to the challenge and you can advance and become that and have something to shoot for. And that's like great advice for any young artist, whether it's rock and roll or whether it's classical or whether it's any sport.
It is, and it shows you. It shows you where you belong in the world. You know, I mean, so here's cop out number two. Like, by the time I was 16 or 17, I'm a really good guitar player. I like the way I play a lot. I can play leads. I'm inventive. If you started playing something on acoustic guitar, I could think of all sorts of things. But I'm not a great guitar player. I know those cats, and there's some great guitar players in this world, and they practice 4 to 6 hours a day. And they play every gig that comes up. And, you know, Vinnie Colaiuta, the great Zappa drummer, made most of his money playing Boom Boom Bop for Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, you know? And that's where that leads. So I looked left and right. I said, okay, there's more of these great guitar players in the world than there might be jobs for them. So what I decided was to diversify my portfolio. So, you know, if you look at my Wikipedia page, it's, you know, it says movie producer. You know, record producer. I've done a little bit of all that. Concert promoter for sure. Music manager for sure. And I was like, okay, I'm either going to start practicing 4 hours a day or I'm going to learn how to promote shows. I'm going to learn how to teach. I'm going to learn how to work in the studio a little bit. And for me, that's really worked. And I got to see, and the same thing happened when I started law school. After the first semester, I looked to my left and my right. I saw the people getting A's. I'm not one of them. They're there at 6 a.m. and they leave at midnight and they're studying, and that's all they do is law school. And if I ever need one of them, I can certainly hire them, you know, and I don't mean that if I ever need a great guitar player, I can hire one. If I ever need a great lawyer, I can hire one. What I'm getting out of law school is a more diverse skill set so that I can be a better music manager. I can be a better teacher. And the best thing about law school is exactly what we were talking about. It is great to spend 3 years in a place that I'm nowhere close to the best person in the room.
I love it. I love it.
I am the top of the bottom third, as they say, you know? And what I realized after a little while, I mean, these are people who have like high aspirations in environmental law. And every time I got a C+, which was twice, you know, I realized my C+ pushed someone else on the curve up to a B-. So, you know, if that's the purpose I'm here for, I'm happy to do it. Because there is nothing a B- is going to do for me, you know. So
well, to see you as someone who's so accomplished, going back and getting your law degree, so that you can better your career and better serve those you work with, that's really admirable. So I applaud you. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
When do you plan on completing that degree? When's the trajectory for that?
I have 1 more year. They don't let you do the first year and work at Temple. So I did it over 4 years. But two hidden secrets about law school. One, it's really much easier than, say, med school or getting a PhD. They don't tell you that. It's hard if you need to get good grades, but it's doable is what I'm saying. So it's something that I was able to do and still teach and be a father and a husband. Run
your businesses, and happy Father's Day, by the way.
Thank you. And run businesses. And the second thing is, you know, you can learn. Law school should be 2 years because you know where everything is after 2 years and where to find what you don't know. But more importantly, I didn't do summer internships. And when all my classmates came back from their first summer, they were different human beings. They dressed better. They spoke more eloquently. They didn't want to. They didn't have as much time for my sort of nonsense. And that's really where the experience comes in. And so 4 years is a lot of law school, is what I'm saying. But because I'm going more for the experience and adding those letters next to my name, it's been one of the best decisions I ever made.
That one thing about being a professional artist is always improving yourself, always getting to the next level, whether it be as a promoter, as a musician, as a performer. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's what I've always been told, and that's what I tell my students. So you're living the dream.
Yeah, if it's easy, you're probably cool. I mean, I can't tell you how many Skype lessons I've given, and the person, maybe especially the younger ones, go like, and I'm like, that feeling right there, seek that feeling. Don't run from it. If it feels like that to play this chord progression, it means you're learning something. You know? And my entire 3 years of law school so far have been like this. Every time I open the exam at the end of the semester, it's so funny. I'm like, I don't even know the first word to write. I'm like, and, if, pursuant to, but then I breathe and I force my way through it, and each one's gotten a little easier.
So let's jump in. So you became you left that job, you started teaching, got more serious about your teaching. I watched your documentary. Was the School of the, what was the name of the documentary? It was a wonderful documentary. I saw it on
Rock School.
Rock School. That's what, and I really enjoyed it. What struck me the most was your approach to the level of your students and your seriousness of how we work with these young people. I've always found that students are they're capable of incredible things, but they have to be pushed and they have to be, they've had to be made to accomplish what their potential is. Talk about how you get students motivated and how you, your unique brand of fire and energy, and tell us about that.
Okay, so School of Rock was the answer to a simple, so I quit the guitar shop, I move all my students to my living room. And then Jason, so I'm going to give away my big proprietary secret here, okay? I'm going to give it away. So anybody listening, if you practice, you get good. And if you don't practice, you don't get good. 1. 2, if you don't practice, your guitar teacher hates teaching you because it's the same lesson every week. And they're just teaching you for the money, which they are used to. And if you do practice, they look at their schedule for the day and they go, oh, great. I know she'll be prepared and we can do some fun stuff. And then, oh, but Ben, he didn't practice. Same thing. Boy, that's a long 45 minutes when they don't practice. And 3, most importantly, if you're holding an instrument and you're having fun, you ain't practicing. That's why it's called playing music. Do that all the time. By all means, play to your heart's content, but you have to practice too. And practice means doing stuff that gives you that feeling we talked about, that tenseness in the chest. Okay, so my kids, I'm teaching in my living room. I feel like they're all really good, And then so I organized them all to come to my rehearsal spot for a jam session one Saturday morning. And they all stunk. They couldn't play the beat. They had no sensitivity to volume, tone, timbre, any of the music. And here I was. I thought I was like this great guitar teacher, and I realized I was like, man, just taking lessons is like being on a baseball team and never playing games. You can take all the BP in the world, but when there's some strange kid from 2 towns over at you, that's a whole different thing. So I was, being a stubborn SOB, I said, every Saturday, we're going to come here and jam. And then the opposite happened. They started getting really good. And I realized that those jam sessions were worth 5 lessons. And then my friend Dylan McConnell, who was a longtime teacher and did the art for School of Rock for years, heard them. I invited him over. He said, will you have your students play my art opening? I said, yeah, I would love that. And then as soon as I put that, it was like midsummer when we got the gig. The art opening was in November. And as soon as I put that date on the calendar, 85% of the kids started actually practicing. And I stumbled upon it. So School of Rock was just the answer to how do you get kids to practice? And then I noticed they all woke up the next day and they said, more shows, please. And over the years, I just developed all these they're hacks, really. They're psych things. Always schedule the next show before the last show's over. Always build room into the program, because you may have a kid knowing all their songs halfway through and they're going to get bored and start resenting the other people. So little things, like you just leave a couple like bonus. That's extra. And, over the years, we developed a system to teach the most music to the most number of kids, and that's what School of Rock grew out of. And we always called it Rock School, but we couldn't use that because Herbie Hancock used to have a show called Rock School, which was actually a good show. So when the flyer was due for his art opening, he said, what's the name of your school? And I said, the Paul Green School of Rock Music, because I wanted it to be funny and too long, which then was the School of Rock. Well, we'd always answer the phone, Rock School, which is why that's what the documentary is called.
Well, that you hit on something really spectacular, because that's become a national trend. It's mushroomed out from far beyond Philadelphia. I've seen them in many different places. What's it like to be a part of something that grows so organically?
On my best days, Jason, when I sold in 2009 when we had 57 locations. There's now over 200 international, doing really well, especially in, I believe, India, Brazil, these kind of countries where they love the rock music. On the mornings, when I remember to meditate, it's a win-win. If I meet because I meet people all the time who have a kid, a friend, a sibling in School of Rock. If I meet someone and they love it, I say, hey, I started that. Glad to hear it. If I meet someone and they're like, man, we didn't have a good experience, then I get to be like, well, that's what happened when I left. So it's funny. You would think that it would be more of the latter, but really nothing but pride. I mean, just like me when I was 12, that guitar gave me identity.
Musicians who find that they find their calling, we all find our calling as artists early, and to find that at a young age is invaluable for people who may not have something else. That may be what takes them and drives them to be who they are. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah, you take that weird kid in the back of the class, the world is stupid, which it may very well be, and you put a bass guitar in that kid's hands. Suddenly all the things that made them weird make them a valuable member of your band. You don't want someone in your band who doesn't think the world is messed up. I think with or without me has saved a lot of lives. But I know that for me, the expansion limited my personal ability to teach music. I went from the chef who loves cooking and is in the kitchen every night to someone who was flying across the country, setting up schools and doing interviews. So that's what PGRA is. PGRA is if Colonel Sanders sold KFC, waited out his non-compete, and then opened 2 chicken shacks. Each open 1 day a week for lunch. Chicken's really good. They ain't gonna make that much money. So I've never been happier. I teach. That's what I do. And then I take my business instincts and I do other things with them. My ideal version of PGRA, if someone in your listening audience, gave me $100,000 a year, I would give free tuition. That's our budget. That needs to be a portion of my income, but I need to make the right decision. When you're trying to maximize revenue for shareholders, you make different decisions than if you're trying to teach the most music to the most number.
That's amazing. So after you so you're no longer associated with School of Rock, the actual franchise?
Nope, sold completely out. I tried to stay with them. I was going through. I had a little bit of a nervous breakdown and probably stormed out of a few too many board meetings for my own good. But it's hard for a founder to stay with. 3 days after we sold, we were at like a brand seminar. And there was some guy with a mullet, cut pictures out of magazines to tell me what you think this brand is. And I put out a magazine, and I was like, no. I'm many things, but a team player is not
That's
one
why
of them.
you started your own thing. You built your own thing. You built a brand. You built a culture. Now describe your current group, your Paul Green Rock Academy, because it really seems like that you find the best students. You put these incredible students in bands. You put them out there, and they're doing great work. I mean, I'm just on your website here on the artists who've worked with the students that you put together. I see Ace Frehley from Kiss. I see Alice Cooper. I see Ann Wilson, lead singer of Heart. Dave Mustaine from Megadeth. All these artists. I mean, just Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. Ian Gillan. I mean, just the who's who of spectacular rock artists. And you bring them.
That includes School of Rock. So I wanted to, I never talk about what we are going to do. I'm just saying, if my students because I'm tireless. For every name you see on there, I'll show you the 3 rejection emails. I'll show you Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull saying, no, that sounds like a living nightmare. And it was, if you join up as my student, I'm going to work tirelessly for you. I will match your work and triple it. So here, learn these crazy Zappa songs, make these videos, work really hard for 3 weeks. I'll make sure we get an audience that sees them.
So tell me about Zappa. Why did you pick Zappa? Bring our audience who may not know your work, bring our audience through what you just did. We opened the program playing a Zappa song that your students put together. Tell us what that encompasses and why you did that and what the students have to do to make that happen.
Right, I'll turn it around to a question to you. If you had a bunch of students and you needed to teach them proper use of harmonic minor scales, what artist would you dive into?
Lots of classical rep, Mozart, but also there's lots of folk music. There's also rock and roll. I mean, I always take things from a multidisciplinary approach.
What about just like an artist? Like, what about counterpoint? Who would be an artist you would pick? Bach, good, yeah. And how about 12-tone compositions?
Oh, Schoenberg, obviously, he's the godfather of that style.
So it's the same with rock. If I have a bunch of students and the thing we need to work on is vocal harmonies, then it's the Beach Boys or it's CSN. If it's how to rock really hard and really sound, it's Black Sabbath. If it's how to make light arrangements really sing, it's Joni Mitchell. So the thing about Zappa is, there are days Zappa's my favorite artist, but I have a pretty strong top 12 or 13 that he sits as an equal among. But as music education, it is unrivaled. It is one-stop shopping. If I need to teach these kids odd time signatures, Zappa. If I need to teach these kids modal theory, Zappa. Within the Zappa, there is 60s pop, funk, hard rock, jazz, not changes. Some stuff that borders on modern classical.
Absolutely. He was inspired by Varese and Stockhausen, I believe.
Certainly, yeah. In fact, he obsessed would be actually the words. And then, most musicians put their money up their nose. I put mine in my ear. So he was, he would hire the London Symphony Orchestra and work with Pierre Boulez. Is that his name?
Sure.
Yeah. And there's and then argue with him, which is there's a great story of him with Boulez. And after a take, Boulez says, "That's done." And Frank says, "No, it's not. It was well. The notes on the paper say we played it right." And Zappa says, "My ears tell me you played it wrong." So it's, so he was unafraid. So in that sense, and then the other thing is there's an audience for it. The kids do a bunch of Beatles songs. Everybody loves the Beatles. But do we have an audience that's going to turn up for it? Probably not. Kids do Zappa. Man, Zappa fans. Zappa considered himself a composer, and by that I think, I don't know if he thought, that's defined as someone who writes music for other people to play and maybe even interpret, because interpretation is automatic. There's a reason there are. If there was no such thing as interpretation, there would be one recording of every classical piece, and we'd be done with it, right?
Finished, sure.
So it's the Nutcrackers. I've heard many different versions of the Nutcracker and have ones. And he also take any Zappa composition and it morphs over. It turns up in all sorts of places. So I really feel like by him interpreting things differently, and I have to say, name drop alert, I'm pretty good friends with a lot of his former band members.
Oh, fantastic!
And Ike Willis appears on a couple of the tracks that I sent you by phone, so he sounds like he's singing through an AM radio, but it's the best we could do. And so I've had long talks, and Zappa's, would hire the right musicians, and with most of them say, here's the composition, learn it, now play what you think. And so I think that the music, like, if we do Stairway to Heaven, nobody in the world wants to hear my kid play a guitar solo that's not the guitar solo to Stairway to Heaven. Myself included. We play Zappa City of Tiny Lights. He never played it the same way twice. So, or King Kong, or whatever. So therefore, there is no definitive version, so there's license for it. So it's kind of like, do I want to teach these kids to be in cover bands? No. But there's nothing wrong with being in a cover band. The best gigs I've ever played, going out to play my own music is rewarding. Going out to play music people actually like, it was actually more rewarding. I formed a Temple Log live band karaoke band with a decent drummer and a decent bass player, great dudes. Some of the most fun gigs I ever played, playing Ariana Grande and Billie Eilish songs and getting to kind of make them my own, with a wah-wah pedal. And so I would think of all the artists we do, Zappa is both like, here's all the lessons, here's enough room to make it your own without deviating from the original thing that I created.
Well, it's quite a project and such a combination of elements, and just to see your students rise to the challenge of some of the hardest repertoire. I got to say, what I love about Zappa is, the improvisatory nature of that music is so important to the style. He was a composer, but even today, modern composers have, like even classical composers, they have improvisatory elements in their compositions, and I think Zappa really. I think an artist of that caliber, like he was, really was onto something special, and I think it really kind of crosses the borders really well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And it's funny. If I were king of the world, I'd make two laws: no new music or no new movies for 5 years. For two reasons. As a punk rock, the most, like a street punk kid in the 80s, I still knew Zappa and Sabbath and Sha Na Na for that matter. So for me, music was cumulative, and Tchaikovsky and Mozart and so forth. Here's, old guy alert. So I feel like there's too much emphasis on the now. So I think with a 5-year moratorium on music and movies, it would force us all to go back, and there's so many great movies, so much good music. And then it would allow 5 years of new ideas to accumulate, so that coming out of the gate. So yes, I am one of those people. Music now just sounds all homogenous to me. And I think if nothing else, the music of 1973 or even 1986, there was a large variety of textures, of approaches. To me, there isn't even a kind of music called punk. It was more a rejection of old world mores, and like you listen to Devo, Bad Brains, and The Police, all three bands that all considered themselves punk at the time. They're as different as can be, and boy, they're all really good musicians. So I think the myth that punk was about a virtue, like a more what's the word? Visual. There's a word there. Like intestinal.
Visceral.
Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Visceral. Yeah. Is I think wrong. My students never have a harder time than when I ask them to play Ramones songs. They're really hard to play.
The energy is it has to be so driving, and it's tough. It's hard, I'd imagine.
And the less going on, the less you can mess up. So when we did these Zappa songs, the ones that took the longest and hardest to get right weren't the ones with quintuplets and time standards. They were the simple ones that really like took the most massaging to get the right textures that we needed. Yeah.
We have a question from our audience. We have Mark from Seattle. It's a great rock town.
Yeah.
Is there any connection between you and the character Jack Black played in the movie School of Rock?
Depends on who you ask. They say they never heard of me, but my website in 2002 was schoolofrock.com. So I'm pretty sure they heard of me. Either that or they had lazy interns doing their research. Here's the story I tell. In 2002 or 2003, VH1 sent a crew to the original School of Rock to film a pitch pilot for a reality show on me and my students. When I saw the footage, I realized that it was too exploitive for my taste, and they weren't offering us enough money. If they had offered enough money, I would have took some and put the rest in the scholarship, and done the reality show. But it was the days before people really got paid on those things. 6 months later, I heard that Paramount Pictures was making a movie called School of Rock. Same company, Viacom. And when their movie came out, I'm going to say, which is ahead on the record, that Jack Black says things in the movie that I said in the pitch file. Scott Rudin also got sued over the movie Philadelphia, in which he took a life story and thought he changed it enough to not have to pay the people. Lost that case. Producer. And nothing against Scott Rudin. He's made some of my favorite entertainment. I hired an IP attorney. Good one. They said they'll settle 5 years from now for some money. They'll make your life uncomfortable in the meantime. The New York Times gave me the front page of the entertainment section. That made my career. Boy, it was worth 700 any other articles. The New York Times, it came out that morning. I got in my office at 10 a.m. I had 147 voicemails.
Wow.
And sold franchises. So the path, yes, it is my assertion, and more strongly asserted by those who know me well. And that character was based on me. I decided not to take legal action, instead to say all the words I just said and let them prove it wasn't based on me. So,
wow, what a story! Well, watching you teach those students on the documentary and hearing it, I know firsthand because my niece is in one of your schools, and watching the performances you produce, the results are spectacular. And you can see that energy is transferred to those students. You rise the level of what they can do, and it's attributed to your energy and to your passion for what you love to do.
Thank you. And your niece is one of my favorites, and I'm happy to. Is that the wrap up paragraph?
No, I've got some more. I love to talk.
Okay. I mean, I'm reason I'm asking is my computer's getting down, so I'll have to. If we want to continue the interview, I'll have to plug in, or we can say goodbye and I can thank you. So,
all right, let's ask one more question. I have one more question from the audience, and this will be the last one. So this is Steve from Florida asks, "What's next? What next? How do you, with the career you've had and the growth and building a huge franchise and then opening up a boutique store, what's next for Paul Green?"
Great. Thanks for asking, Steve. I've decided I like to diversify. A really wonderful pop music school out of Pittsburgh to help them sort of chart a path similar that I took with School of Rock. I'm also have some other plays in the music education space. I do music managing. I'm helping to develop a couple young artists. I spend John Anderson from Yes, another one of my favorite bands. I toured with him this summer at School of Rock until COVID, which is a shame. But we'll do that. I basically I spent 6 months as his manager, which is a bad. I'd rather just be his friend who helps him out a lot, and vice versa. And I kind of sit at the computer and do a bunch of stuff, and I really love it that way. It's I don't ever want to blow up the rock music thing to a point where I don't have personal contact with my students. And I wanted to actually go back to another point, and then I'll end with this. GRA, the ad said for accomplished young musicians. And I started getting all these auditions from kids who either were or thought they were, and all their parents thought they were, accomplished young musicians. And they wanted to show me their YouTube videos and some drum clinic they played in. And it wasn't my, like, no offense to anyone, there's no such thing as an accomplished young musician. You know what I mean? I'm 40, about to turn 48. I'm not an accomplished young musician. I'm still learning.
You and me both.
I changed it to ambitious young musicians. And some of my kids, they have a lot of work to do. It'll be curiosity. You give me a kid who's curious and wants to know how things work, the rest is easy when you're the teacher.
What do you think about the concept of talent? Is talent born? Is talent nurtured? What's your thoughts on that?
Favorite language. If you ever want to see me get uncomfortable after one of my shows, watch someone come up to me and say, "Man, your students are really talented." Talent and $14.99 will buy you a Netflix subscription.
Well, that's.
We're all talented. I've got kids who have perfect pitch. I've got kids who've got great rhythmic senses. I got kids who can sing spot on. I've got kids who, we all have talent. It's what you do with them that really matters. I think talent, here's where my Marxist leanings come out. Talent, where, I've worked with enough rock stars. They are the hardest working, most curious, best read, most ambitious people who also happen to be talented. And let's end there.
All right, thanks.
Jason.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us today, and continued success on everything you do, from your law degree to your school. And we're going to put the website address of your rock school so people can go on there and check it out, and spread the word that great rock is coming to you through Paul Green Rock School.
Great. And we are accepting, we're doing online camps this summer, I should say. We have 2 heavy metal luminaries joining us, Scott Ian from Anthrax, Brendan Small, who makes the show Metal Ox, and then a few skill camps based around popular bands like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, run by our staff. And if you go to see our Zappa videos, we're making more stuff like that this summer. So if you live in Florida or Tennessee and you want to hop on the train, we'd be happy to have you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you for joining Music Matters 2020 with Jason Tramm. Be sure, if you like this program, hit our subscribe button. Hit the bell. Make sure you hit that bell for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. And we have a website now. It's jasontram.net, and it's all of our upcoming programs and a library of our past episodes. We always have the most interesting guests, like you heard today. Interesting people with a unique perspective who are doing great work in the artistic community. And we just made up our T-shirts, so anyone who makes a donation on Patreon or would like a T-shirt, make sure you reach out to us, and we'll make sure you join our podcast community. And thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, keep music alive.